You ever stand in a place where joy's supposed to bloom only to feel the cold breath of fate brush your neck? That's what it felt like standing in that little chapel on the edge of Devil's Hollow. Sunlight spilled through the warped glass, wood pews full of dusty boots and squinting eyes, and me wearing my best coat, which wasn't saying much. They said weddings bring folks together, but this one, it was stitched together by desperation, silence, and a father's last wish. Her name was Josephine Calloway. Folks called her Josie. She had hair like burnt gold and eyes that never blinked when they stared straight through you. Grew up ranching with her pa, Reuben Calloway, once the most respected cattleman west of the river, before sickness took his legs and drought took his pride. Now Josie didn't wear frills or lace. She wore grit like a second skin. Never seen her cry. Not even the day the doctor told Reuben he wouldn't last another spring. That's when the promise was made. I want you settled, he told her, breath thin like sandpaper. You marry a man with land, with a name, someone who can protect what's left. And Josie, always loyal to a fault, nodded through clenched teeth. I will, Pa. Didn't he? She had to love the man. The man in question was Clive Mercer, rancher, twice widowed, owned more acres than he knew what to do with, and a reputation slicker than river mud. He smelled like money and talked like a preacher with something to hide. But he had what Reuben wanted, stability. And he wanted Josie bad enough to offer protection, cattle, and a guarantee. Calloway land would stay Calloway land, even if only in name. So a deal was struck, a wedding planned, folks whispered. Some said it was a match made in heaven. Others said it was more of a transaction carved out of hell. Josie never once smiled in her dress fittings. She didn't write vows. She didn't pick flowers. She showed up on that day because her word was iron and her father's breath was fading. But let me tell you, the moment she walked through those chapel doors, every man stood up a little straighter. She wasn't taught beautiful in a fragile way. No. She looked like the kind of woman you'd ride across 3 states for, just to get close enough to say her name. She walked slowly, controlled, like she had a secret under her veil. And maybe she did. I was there. I saw the whole thing. Clive stood at the front in his best leather boots, grinning like he already owned her. The preacher's hands were shaking, maybe from age, maybe from what he could feel in the air. A storm not yet broken. Josie took her place. No kiss, no small talk. Just those wide, unreadable eyes looking dead ahead. The preacher cleared his throat. If any man has reason, this union should not proceed. And that's when she did it, didn't even hesitate. Josie reached into the folds of her dress, drew a silver-handled pistol, and shot Clive Mercer point-blank through the chest. The sound of that gunshot didn't echo. It roared like it'd been waiting for years to be fired. Clive staggered back, eyes wide with betrayal, hands clutching, his chest like he couldn't believe the world had turned on him. His knees gave out before the preacher even dropped his Bible. 1 second he was a groom. The next he was just a body leaking blood on the floorboards of a house built for mercy. Josie didn't run, didn't cry, didn't even lower the pistol. She turned to the crowd, half of them with their jaws open, the other half reaching for iron on their belts, and she said, calm as a sunrise, "That man killed my sister." No one knew what to do. Folks in Devil's Hollow had seen violence before, but not like this, not in a church, not in a dress, not from a bride. I stayed real still in the back pew, heart jackhammering in my chest, not out of fear, out of the feeling that I was witnessing something biblical. Wrath and justice dressed in ivory and lace. Sheriff Barnes was the first to move, old man with a limp and eyes that missed nothing. "Put the gun down, Josie," he said, voice like worn leather. She did, slow and sure, like she knew the next part was always gonna come. They cuffed her right there at the altar, led her down the aisle she was supposed to walk as a wife. And I swear the only sound in that chapel was the clink of metal on bone and ragged breath of a dying man. Now here, where it gets sticky. 3 years ago, Clive Mercer had business out in Pike Bend. Josie's sister Miriam was working as a bookkeeper at the stage depot there. Smart girl, sweet, got swept up in Mercer's charm the way moths go to lanterns, blind and fast. She disappeared 2 months later. No body, no answers. Only clue was a letter Josie found tucked in an old ledger, Miriam's handwriting shakier than usual, saying she was scared. Saying Clive had secrets buried deeper than his gold. Then silence. Sheriff Barnes had looked, town folks talked, but Clive's money bought silence and smoothed suspicion like butter over burnt bread. Case went cold. But Josie, she never let it go. I'd seen her ride out alone sometimes under moonlight, come back with mud on her boots and thunder in her eyes. She was digging, not just for answers, but for the right moment. And that moment came with laced gloves and wedding rings. She didn't plan to escape, didn't even blink when the jury came down guilty. They offered leniency if she spoke more named names, but Josie just said, "He took my blood, I gave him back justice." 10 years, that's what she got. 10 long years behind stone and steel. And the town changed. The Callaway Ranch sat empty. Reuben died 3 weeks after the trial. Heart gave out, they said. Or maybe he finally stopped fighting the world. Maybe he thought Josie had done what he asked, just not how he imagined. Me? I visited her once. Just once. Sat behind glass watching. Her eyes study me like they always did, measured and sharp. She said, "You came." And I said, "I had to know." Know what? Ma. If you regret it. She leaned back, hands folded. I regret waiting so long. She didn't ask about the ranch, didn't ask who came to her defense or who turned their backs. I think Josie knew Devil's Hollow would split down the middle like a river finding a new path through rock. Some called her a murderess, others, a martyr. I rode home that day feeling older than I was house, felt emptier than I remembered. Dust settled on the windowsills, like silence, and Reuben's old chair creaked in the corner, like it missed him too. I sat there most nights wondering what justice really costs when you pay in blood. 3 years passed. Then 5 Josie served her time like a ghost. No fights, no trouble, just iron routine and that same distant stare. But the world didn't stand still. Clive Mercer's family tried to reclaim the Callaway land. Said Josie voided the marriage, and inheritance died with her. Daddy courts took their side. For a while it looked like the Callaway name would vanish like smoke until a lawyer from Junction showed up with papers Josie had drawn up in secret. A will Reuben had signed before the wedding. Left everything to a neighbor boy who'd helped tend the land when no one else would. Me. I didn't know what to do with it. I hadn't earned it, but the ink was dry, and the signature was clean. So I did the only thing I could. I kept it going, planted wheat, mended fences, left Josie's room untouched the day she got out. I was waiting by the gate. She didn't smile, just stood there free, but looking like she'd forgotten how to breathe fresh air. I tipped my hat and said, "Place needs a woman's touch." She looked up, eyes clear and cold. "It needs a woman who can shoot straight." We didn't say more, just rode home slow, the wind pressing at our backs like it wanted us to remember how it all began. That first night she didn't take her old room, sat on the porch till the stars came out. I brought her coffee. She took it, without thanks, sipped it like it might bite back. "You still think I was wrong?" she asked. I shook my head. "I think you did what no one else would." She nodded once. Then, "Let's not talk about it again." And we didn't not. For months we didn't talk much, Josie and I, not at first. She took to the land like it had waited on her, fixed up the barn, rebroke the horses, cleared the south field of bur oaks that had strangled it for years. She didn't ask for help, didn't offer stories. Just worked like she was trying to sweat the past out of her skin. Some nights I'd find her standing by the well looking up at the stars. She never said what she was thinking, but I knew. You don't come back from prison the same way you went in something hard and something else breaks town didn't take to her right off either. Old ladies crossed the street when she came through. Men stared too long, then looked away fast. They didn't know what to make of her. A woman who stood her ground, took a life, and never once begged forgiveness. One Sunday, I saw her in the churchyard, just standing outside the chapel, hands behind her back, hat pulled low. She didn't go in, just stood there till the bell stopped ringing, then turned and walked home slow, like even the road didn't know whether to welcome her or not. I asked her later if she missed faith. She said no, but I miss what it felt like to believe in something bigger than fear. That stuck with me. Weeks bled into months, and the farm began to bloom again. Wildflowers where dust used to lie, a calf born healthy, and spring wheat came up clean and Josie. She started humming again, not songs I knew, slow, sad things full of hills and hollows. Like she was carrying pieces of ghosts in her throat. We never talked about Clive Mercer again, not once. But sometimes at supper, her hand would linger over the fork, her eyes go far off. I didn't ask. Didn't have to. Some things stick in a soul like a burr in a saddle. No amount of pulling gets it out clean. Then came the letter, arrived in a pale blue envelope. No return name. Josie opened it by the stove and turned white as snow on a mountain pass. She folded it once, slow, slipped it into her coat, and walked out. I followed her halfway to the ridge before she stopped. Sheriff in Laredo, she said, not looking at me. They found a boy. Says he remembers a woman who sang to him through a wall. Said her name was Josie. My throat tightened. I never had a child, she said, but I shared a cell with a girl who did. Girl died in childbirth. They took the baby, said he wouldn't make it past winter. She turned to me. They were wrong. She left that same night, didn't pack more than a satchel, said she had to see him with her own eyes, even if he didn't know her name, even if he didn't remember the songs I offered to ride with her. She said, no, said it had to be her alone. I watched her silhouette fade into the dusk like smoke from a dying fire. Didn't sleep for 2 nights after then. On the 3rd morning, I heard boots on the porch. She walked in quiet coat, dusted with red dirt, eyes, red-rimmed, but burning clear. Is tall, she said, got my chin in her eyes. She didn't cry, just took off her hat and hung it like she used to. So they said his the family now a good one. Sheriff said he sings to himself. Same tune I used to hum through the wall. She smiled, not proud, not broken, just full. I left him a letter, told him not to come find me, told him to live. And that was the last time she ever spoke of him after that. Something in her changed, not softer, no, but steadier. Like she'd dropped some invisible weight she'd carried too long. She started drawing again, sketches on scrap paper, horses, fences, the house from the hill. Once I saw one tucked in her Bible. Me, sitting on the porch, drinking coffee. She never said why she kept it there. That fall we built a 2nd bedroom. I offered to help. She said no. Said if she was going to stay, she wanted her own space, she made with her own hands. She never said the word forever, but I stopped counting the days. She never wore a ring, didn't wear dresses either, but she'd brush her hair out on Sundays, braid it tight like her mother used to. One night, I woke to find her sitting at the kitchen table with a candle burning low. She slid a letter across the wood. Just in case, she said. I didn't read it then. Didn't want to know what in case meant, but I kept it, still have it. It was early spring when the past caught up. I was out by the creek, mending fence posts, when I saw 3 riders cutting across the ridge, slow, deliberate. Not ranch hands, not surveyors. These men rode like they were used to getting answers at gunpoint. Josie was on the porch by the time I got back, rifle leaned casual against the wall. She was calm, too calm, you know, Em? I asked. She nodded. Once one of M's wit, McHale, the others I don't know from your past. She didn't answer, just said they ain't here for coffee. I saddled my horse, told her we could ride out now, disappear south if she wanted. She didn't blink. I'm done running. If they want to talk, they can do it here. They didn't ask for pleasantries, just rode up slowly like they owned the dirt under them. The tall one, Wit tipped his hat. Well, it'll be little Josie Harrow, alive and breathing, Thought sure you was swinging from a rope after what you did to Doolin. Her face didn't change. You come all this way for a ghost story? He grinned the kind of grin that does not reach the eyes. I come for what's owed. You killed a man with friends, Josie. And those friends ain't forgot. That was the thing about ghosts. They didn't knock, they just came bold as hell, expectin' debts paid in blood. I ain't hidin', she said, but I ain't handin' myself over either. Then he looked at me. And you? You, her new man? Or just too dumb to know who you're keepin' warm? I said, I know who she is. You sure? He asked, grinning. She told you how she used to ride with the Varnell gang? How she ran cons from San Antonio to Kansas City? How she put a bullet in her fiancé's chest with half the town watchin'? Josie didn't move, just stood there with her arms crossed, eyes fixed on the horizon. I said, Shez told me enough. He laughed. Meanwhile, then you're both fools, but I'm feelin' generous. Hand her over, and I'll leave your land untouched. I looked at her. She didn't speak, didn't plead, didn't run, just waited. I said, you step 1 foot past that gate, and it'll be your last. That was the line. They crossed it. And what happened next? It was fast, loud, bloody. Josie moved like lightning. 1 shot clean into the chest of the man on the left. I dropped the other as he reached for his belt wit, tried to run, took a bullet to the leg before he made it 10 paces. He crawled, begged Josie, stood over him. Gun steady, Doolin was gonna kill me. She said, you know that he meant to own me. She said, you know that he meant to own me. Wit, wheezed, he loved you, no, she whispered. He bought me, and then she walked away. Didn't shoot him. Didn't need to. He bled out by the fence post like a wolf, too old for its teeth. We burned the bodies behind the North Ridge. Didn't mark the graves. Didn't speak of it again. After the dust settled, quiet returned, but it wasn't the kind that scrapes at you. It was a stillness, earned, the kind that hangs like fog after a storm. Josie didn't say much the next few days, spent her mornings near the corral brushing the horses, her afternoons walking the fence line with that same rifle slung over her shoulder. I gave her space, figured a woman ought to have the time to come to terms with the things. Shez survived. One evening after supper, we sat on the porch, no words, just the creak of the chair and the distant howl of a coyote out near the butts. She broke the silence. First, you ever wonder what it'd be like if none of this happened? She asked. I shrugged. I reckon I used to before I met you. She turned to look at me, eyes tired but clear. You should hate me, she said. I brought death to your door, lied to you, stood at that altar ready to play a part and pulled the trigger. Instead, I shook my head. No, you did what you had to do, same as me. She blinked like she wasn't sure what to make of that. Then she said something I didn't expect. My father, he never made me promise to marry Doolin. That was a lie. He begged me to run, said a life in hiding was better than one owned by a man like that. But I thought I could fix things, thought I could use that wedding to start over, right the wrongs. I leaned forward. So why tell me you promised him? She gave a sad smile. Because if I said I wanted to kill the groom, you'd have never let me ride with you. I laughed short and low. You're probably right. She reached into her coat and pulled out something wrapped in cloth, handed it to me. Inside was a folded letter, old crease, stained with what looked like time and tears. I opened it. It was from her father, dated 3 years back, written in shaky pen. Josie, if you're reading this, then you're still running. I want you to know I was proud of you. Proud the day you picked up a rifle to protect our land, and proud when you rode away to keep your spirit intact. Don't marry for safety, don't settle for silence. Find someone who sees all of you and stays. Anyway, you always were the bravest soul I ever knew. Love, Pop. I folded it slow, sat with it in my lap. Josie wiped at her cheek, didn't say a word that night. We didn't make promises, we didn't talk of forever. But I held her hand and she didn't let go, and in that moment, with the fire low and the wind gently against the windows, I realized some people aren't meant to be tame. They're meant to ride wild, scarred, and free. And if you're lucky, they'll let you ride beside M for a while. The years rolled on like a slow river after spring thaw. Folks in town never spoke much about what happened that day at the chapel. Some said Doolin had it come, and others said the whole story was stranger than fiction. But no one ever asked me to explain, and I never offered. Josie stayed for a while. Weeks, maybe months, depending how you count time when you don't want it to end. She helped fix the roof, planted lilacs near the porch, and carved a horse's head into the oak beam above the barn door. Said it'd keep the spirits kind. We built something, quietly, without fuss. Morning coffee, evening walks. Sometimes a kiss, sometimes just a look that said more than any promise ever could. But one morning I woke to find her saddlebag gone just like that. She left a note, 3 words: don't follow me, no reason, no goodbye, just gone. I rode out 2 days later anyway, made it as far as Hollow Ridge, asked around, nothing. No one had seen a woman matching her face. Not at the tavern, not at the trading post, not on any wanted posters either, thank God. So I rode home, years, past the ranch, held steady. Cattle came and went, fences broke and were mended, the roses she planted bloomed each spring like they were waiting for her. And me? I never remarried, never came close. I'd sit out on that porch at dusk, and sometimes talk to her like she might be listening from wherever the hell she'd vanished to. Some nights the wind would change, carry a tune, faint, just a few notes like humming over the hills. Could have been memory, could have been madness, but I always listened. Folks asked once why I never hired a ranch hand, or took a wife to help with the place. I'd just smile and say, ain't found anyone stubborn enough to stay. Truth was, I never stopped hoping she might ride back in one day, dust on her boots, that old rifle slung behind her, and tell me she was tired of running, but she never did. Then one spring something changed. I found a package on my porch, wrapped in oilskin, no name, no note. Inside was a worn leather-bound book, a collection of poetry inside the cover, one phrase scribbled in a hand, ID, no anywhere. Some fires never burn out. That night, I built a fire, and read it cover to cover. Every poem felt like a whisper from the past. Some pages smelled like smoke and sagebrush. One had a coffee stain, just like the mornings we used to share. I don't know where Josie is now. Maybe she found peace. Maybe she's still out there riding towards some horizon she hasn't figured out yet. But every year on the day we met, I light a lantern and leave it by the gate, just in case. Because there are some women the world doesn't know what to do with. Women too wild to cage, too fierce to break, and too real to forget. And Josie, she was all 3. Some stories don't end with a wedding bell or a settled land. They end with the memory of a wild heart that taught you what it means to truly live, and sometimes that's all the forever you need.